Buckle up, y'all, because I'm about to take you on a ride down Interstate 4 from Orlando to Polk City. And let me tell you, honey, it's a journey you won't soon forget. Now, if you're not from around these parts, you might be tempted to think that driving on I-4 is just like driving on any other highway. But let me tell you, there's nothing quite like cruising down this stretch of road. It's a wild ride full of twists, turns, and surprises. As you leave Orlando and head west, the first thing you'll notice is the traffic. Oh, the traffic. It seems like no matter what time of day it is, there's always a backup on I-4. You'll see folks trying to cut in and out of lanes, honking their horns, and generally acting a fool. But don't worry, y'all, just keep your cool and stay in your lane. You'll get to Polk City eventually. But the traffic isn't the only thing that'll catch your eye on this drive. You'll also see some of the most beautiful scenery Florida has to offer. From lush green forests to sparkling lakes, this drive is a feast for the eyes. And if you're lucky, you might even catch a glimpse of some of Florida's famous wildlife. Keep your eyes peeled for gators, y'all. Of course, no drive down I-4 would be complete without a stop at one of the many roadside attractions. There are all sorts of funky and fun places to check out along the way, from classic diners to funky antique shops. And if you're feeling daring, you can even take a ride on one of the many thrill rides at the theme parks. But as much fun as this drive can be, it's important to remember to stay safe. Always wear your seatbelt, keep your eyes on the road, and don't let the other drivers get under your skin. And if you need a break from all the craziness, just pull over and take a breather. There are plenty of rest stops along the way where you can stretch your legs, grab a snack, and recharge. All in all, driving on I-4 from Orlando to Polk City is an experience like no other. It's a wild ride full of surprises, but if you keep your wits about you, you'll make it to your destination in one piece. So buckle up, y'all, and get ready for the ride of your life. Alright, now, let me tell you all about the history of Interstate 4, also known as I-4. This highway stretches from Daytona Beach in the east all the way to Tampa in the west, crossing through the heart of Florida. It's a major thoroughfare for both commuters and tourists alike, but did you all know it's got a pretty interesting history too? The construction of I-4 began in the 1950s, and it was officially opened to traffic in 1963. It was built to replace the old U.S. Route 1792, which was a two-lane road that couldn't handle the increasing traffic flow in the area. The highway was built in sections, with the first segment opening in 1959 between DeLand and Sanford. Now, here's where things get interesting. The construction of I-4 was not without controversy. In fact, the highway was the subject of a federal investigation in the 1970s due to allegations of corruption and bribery. It was said that contractors were paying off government officials in order to secure contracts for the construction of the highway. Despite these allegations, construction continued and I-4 was expanded over the years to accommodate the growing population of Central Florida. In the 1990s, major renovations were made to the highway to address safety concerns and traffic flow issues. But even with these improvements, I-4 has remained notorious for its traffic congestion and accidents. It's been dubbed the I-4 dead zone by some due to the high number of accidents that occur along its stretch. In fact, in 2016, a study found that I-4 was the most dangerous highway in the country, with the highest number of fatal accidents per mile. But you all know what they say. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And that's exactly what's been happening with I-4. The highway has become a symbol of Central Florida's growth and development, with major theme parks and tourist destinations located along its route. It's also become a source of inspiration for local artists and musicians, who have used the highway as a backdrop for their work. So, there you have it, folks. The history of I-4 is a tale of controversy, growth, and even tragedy. But it's also a story of resilience and creativity, with the highway serving as a symbol of the unique character of Central Florida. Let me tell you about some of the craziest things I've seen on Interstate 4. Now, if you're not from Florida, you might not know that I-4 is known as the Highway to Hell. And let me tell you, it's earned that nickname. First of all, we've got the infamous I-4 dead zone. This is a stretch of highway between Orlando and Daytona Beach where there have been a disproportionate number of accidents and deaths. Some say it's cursed, others blame the construction of the highway. But either way, It's a spooky place to drive through, especially at night. Then we've got the time a truck carrying liquid nitrogen overturned on the highway. Now, you might think, what's the big deal? Well, let me tell you, that liquid nitrogen turned into a gas and created a huge fog bank on the highway. Drivers couldn't see a thing, and several accidents occurred as a result. And who could forget the time a wild elephant got loose on the highway? Yes, you read that right. An elephant. It had escaped from a circus and was wandering around on I-4, causing quite a commotion. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but it just goes to show you never know what you might encounter on this highway. But perhaps the most bizarre incident was the time a man dressed as a superhero climbed up a traffic signal on I-4 and threatened to jump. This caused a massive traffic jam, and it took several hours for police to talk him down. Turns out he was just trying to raise awareness for a local charity, but still, that's not the way to do it. It's your girl coming at you with an in-depth guide to the exits on Interstate 4 in Polk County. First up, we've got exit 32, which takes you to the town of Lakeland. If you're looking for some good eats, check out the local favorite, Harry's Seafood Bar and Grill. Trust me, their blackened catfish is to die for. Next, we've got exit 41, which leads to Davenport. If you're looking to hit up some theme parks, this is your exit for getting to Disney World and Universal Studios. But be warned, traffic can be a hot mess, especially during peak tourist season. If you're heading towards Tampa, you'll want to take exit 44, which leads to the Polk Parkway. This is a toll road, but it can save you some time if you're trying to avoid the traffic on I-4. Finally, we've got exit 55, which leads to the town of Haines City. This exit is your gateway to exploring some of the natural beauty of Central Florida, including Lake Eva Park and the Alan David Broussard Catfish Creek Preserve State Park. So there you have it, folks. My guide to the exits on Interstate 4 in Polk County. Stay safe out there and don't forget to bring some snacks for the road. They say that the only thing worse than driving on I-4 is being stuck in a room with a telemarketer. But at least with a telemarketer, you can hang up. If you want to know what it's like to drive on I-4, just imagine trying to navigate through a demolition derby while blindfolded. You know you're on I-4 when the road signs switch from mile markers to survival guides. They say that the construction on I-4 is like a never-ending nightmare, but honestly, I think that's giving nightmares a bad name. You haven't truly experienced I-4 until you've had to dodge a falling palm frond while going 70 miles per hour. I-4 is the only road where you can start your journey in one decade and end up in another. They say that patience is a virtue, but on I-4 it's a survival skill. I-4, where the traffic is so bad that you could literally run out of gas while sitting in it. You know you're on I-4 when you start to wonder if the construction workers are actually making things better or just messing with us for fun. They say that the journey is more important than the destination. Clearly, they've never driven on I-4. Buckle up, y'all, because I'm about to take you on a ride down Interstate 4 from Orlando to Polk City. And let me tell you, honey, it's a journey you won't soon forget. Now, if you're not from around these parts, you might be tempted to think that driving on I-4 is just like driving on any other highway. But let me tell you, there's nothing quite like cruising down this stretch of road. It's a wild ride full of twists, turns, and surprises. As you leave Orlando and head west, the first thing you'll notice is the traffic. Oh, the traffic. It seems like no matter what time of day it is, there's always a backup on I-4. You'll see folks trying to cut in and out of lanes, honking their horns, and generally acting a fool. But don't worry, y'all, just keep your cool and stay in your lane. You'll get to Polk City eventually. As I hit mile marker 88 on Interstate 4 in Florida, my patience hit rock bottom. It's like this road has a mind of its own, always trying to mess with me. It's one of those highways that you just can't seem to escape no matter how hard you try. The only thing more frustrating than the constant construction and never-ending traffic is the fact that they have the nerve to call it a highway. It's more like a parking lot that just happens to have cars moving at a snail's pace. And don't even get me started on the drivers. People cutting in and out of lanes, not using their turn signals, and just generally causing chaos. It's like they all left their brains at home before getting behind the wheel. I've even started to dread the thought of taking a road trip that involves I-4. It's like signing up for hours of torture and frustration, but unfortunately, it's a necessary evil if you want to get anywhere in this part of Florida. So, to all the drivers on Interstate 4, please, for the love of all things holy, stay in your lane, use your turn signals, and try to act like you have some sense. Otherwise, I might just lose my mind and start screaming out my car window. As I sit in my car, stuck in yet another traffic jam on Interstate 4, my mind begins to wander. I start thinking about all the terrible things I would rather do than drive on this cursed highway. First off, I would rather get a root canal without anesthesia than spend another minute on this road. The constant stop and go traffic and never-ending construction make me want to scream. Secondly, I would rather clean out a porta potty with my bare hands than deal with the reckless drivers on this road. It seems like everyone thinks they're a NASCAR driver, weaving in and out of lanes and cutting people off. Thirdly, I would rather eat a plate of moldy cheese than have to deal with the confusing exit numbers and poorly marked lanes. It's like they're intentionally trying to make it as difficult as possible to navigate. And finally, I would rather take my chances with a swarm of angry bees than ever have to drive on Interstate 4 again. The stress and frustration it causes just isn't worth it. So there you have it, folks. Driving on Interstate 4 is officially worse than a root canal, cleaning a porta potty, eating moldy cheese, and facing a swarm of angry bees combined. As I drove down Interstate 4, I couldn't help but feel regretful about the choices I had made in my life. The endless sea of concrete and cars seemed to mock me with their constant reminder of the path I had taken. I thought about all the times I had settled for less than I deserved, all the times I had let fear dictate my decisions, and all the missed opportunities I had let slip through my fingers. The regret weighed heavily on my heart as I tried to navigate through the chaos of the highway. The constant honking and swerving of cars around me only added to my anxiety, making me wish I could just pull over and escape the never-ending stream of traffic. But I knew I had to keep moving forward, both on the highway and in my life. As I continued to drive, I made a promise to myself that I would no longer let fear hold me back. I would take risks and pursue my passions, no matter how daunting they may seem. And maybe one day, I would be able to look back at this moment on Interstate 4 with a sense of gratitude for the wake-up call it had provided me. But for now, I just needed to focus on getting off this highway in one piece and making it to my destination. As I drove down Interstate 4, I couldn't help but think of it as a bus crash full of angry clowns. The honking horns and swerving cars felt like the clowns were careening out of control, desperate to escape their confined space. Every exit seemed to lead to more chaos and confusion, with cars cutting each other off and drivers yelling obscenities. I wondered how I had ended up on this highway, and why I had made the choice to subject myself to such madness. The billboards along the road advertised theme parks and attractions, but all I could focus on were the never-ending construction zones and the constant traffic. It was as if the clowns had taken over and were determined to make my life a living hell. As I inched along, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a way out of this nightmare. Maybe I should have taken the back roads or just stayed home altogether. But it was too late now. I was stuck in this never-ending circus of a highway, surrounded by angry clowns in their metal cages. I took a deep breath and tried to focus on the road ahead, but the honking horns and blaring music from nearby cars made it impossible. All I could do was grip the steering wheel tightly and pray for the ride to end. In that moment, I promised myself that I would never make the mistake of driving on Interstate 4 again. It was just too much like a bus crash full of angry clowns, and I wasn't sure my nerves could handle it. I can't help but compare this godforsaken road to the worst boyfriend I've ever had. You know the type. The one who promises you the world but never delivers, the one who always leaves you stranded and frustrated. Just like that boyfriend, Interstate 4 is full of broken promises. It promises to get you where you need to go quickly and efficiently, but instead it's a slow crawl of bumper-to-bumper traffic and constant construction. And just like that boyfriend, Interstate 4 always seems to let you down when you need it most. You're running late for an important meeting, too bad, because there's a 10-mile backup due to a fender bender. You need to make it to the airport on time, tough luck. because there's a lane closure causing a major delay. Interstate 4 is the epitome of an unreliable and frustrating partner. No matter how many times you try to make it work, it always finds a way to disappoint you. I'm starting to think I'd be better off walking to my destination than relying on this terrible excuse for a highway. As I drove down Interstate 4, my hands gripped tightly to the steering wheel and my heart raced with each passing mile. The chaos and confusion of this road always made me feel like I was on the verge of losing control. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself, but as the cars around me continued to weave in and out of lanes, my anxiety grew stronger. I couldn't help but think about how this road reminded me of life itself. It was unpredictable and dangerous, filled with twists and turns that could lead you down a path of uncertainty. I felt like I was navigating through a minefield, trying my best to avoid the explosions that could tear me apart at any moment. In those moments, I found myself praying for my soul. I felt like I was on a journey, not just down this treacherous road, but through life itself. I thought about all the mistakes I had made and the times I had strayed from the path I knew was right. And as I drove, I asked for forgiveness and guidance. As I continued on, I couldn't help but feel like I was in a race against time. Each moment spent on this road felt like a moment wasted, a moment closer to my eventual demise. But as I looked out at the world around me, I realized that every moment was a gift, a chance to live and learn and grow. And so, I took a deep breath and continued down the road, holding on to hope and faith in the knowledge that every step, even the difficult ones, were leading me towards something greater. As I drove down Interstate 4, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of regret and remorse for all of my life choices that had led me to this moment. The road was bumpy, crowded, and chaotic. I felt like I was navigating through a sea of angry drivers, honking horns, and exhaust fumes. As I looked around, I saw other drivers who looked just as miserable as I did. Some were yelling and gesturing at each other, while others were staring blankly ahead, lost in their own thoughts. I felt like I was part of a collective suffering, a shared misery that only those who had driven down this road could truly understand. Every time I hit a pothole or heard a screeching brake, I felt a deep sense of anger and frustration welling up inside me. I wanted to scream, to curse at the road, at the other drivers, at the world. But instead, I took a deep breath and tried to keep my cool. As I continued down the road, I went through all the stages of grief. I felt denial, telling myself that this couldn't be happening, that there had to be a better way. Then came anger, as I raged against the road, the traffic, and the universe. Bargaining followed, as I promised myself that I would never take this route again if only I could make it through this one time. Depression hit me hard, as I wondered if my life had any meaning at all if it led me to this moment. But finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I reached acceptance. I realized that sometimes life throws us challenges that we can't control, and all we can do is endure them with grace and dignity. As I pulled off the exit, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I apologized to myself and to mankind for ever having to endure the horrors of Interstate 4. And I made a promise to myself to never, ever take that road again. Over the years, many famous people have complained about the highway for various reasons. One of the most famous people to complain about I-4 is comedian and actor Kevin Hart. In 2016, Hart tweeted about his experience on the highway, calling it the worst highway in America. He went on to describe the highway as a nightmare and encouraged his followers to avoid it at all costs. In 2018, musician and Florida native John Mayer also expressed his frustration with I-4. He tweeted, "I-4 is my least favorite road in America. That's all." Actor and comedian Hannibal Buress also had a negative experience on I-4. In 2014, he tweeted, "I-4 is like if The Walking Dead took place on a highway." Even politicians have complained about I-4. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush once referred to the highway as a parking lot with palm trees. It's not just celebrities and politicians who have had negative experiences on I-4. Locals and visitors alike have complained about the highway's frequent traffic jams, confusing exits, and dangerous driving conditions. Despite the complaints, I-4 remains an important and heavily traveled highway in Florida. In recent years, efforts have been made to improve the highway's safety and traffic flow, but it still remains a source of frustration for many drivers.